The UHSS, Mercy's Dawn, moved through space like a giant white angel. Her hull stretched over 2 kilometers long, painted bright white with huge red crosses that could be seen from far away. Captain Lee Min-ho stood on the bridge, his hands behind, his back as he watched the star map in front of him. 12 other ships followed behind his flagship, all painted the same white with red medical symbols. "Sir, we're getting close to the Zelani system," said Navigator Jung-hana from her station. The young officer had volunteered for this mission, just like everyone else on board. No one was forced to come here. They all knew the dangers. Min-ho looked at the tactical screen showing their convoy. Each ship carried hundreds of doctors, nurses, and medical equipment. The Mercy's Dawn alone had 40 operating rooms and could hold 10,000 patients. Behind them came the Healing Light, Second Chance, and 9 other hospital ships. Over 3,000 medical workers had volunteered for this rescue mission. "Captain," called Communications Officer Park Ji-won from across the bridge. Her voice shook a little. "I'm picking up emergency signals from the planet's surface. The Zelani are calling for help on all frequencies." The bridge fell quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Everyone knew why they were here. The Zelani were peaceful fish-like beings who lived in underwater cities. They had never hurt anyone, but 2 powerful alien groups, the Hegemony and the Compact, had started fighting over their star system. The Zelani got caught in the middle. "What kind of signals?" Min-ho asked, though he already feared the answer. Park Ji-won pressed buttons on her console, and voices filled the bridge. The universal translator made the alien words understandable, but the pain in them needed no translation. "Please help us. Our children are dying, the sky burns, we have nowhere to run." Dr. Kim Soo-young entered the bridge at that moment. She was the mission's head doctor, a small woman with kind eyes who had saved thousands of lives across human space. Her medical coat was already stained from treating patients they had picked up at their last stop. "Captain, our medical teams are ready," she said firmly. "We have enough supplies to treat major trauma cases for 6 months. Our surgical teams have been practicing non-stop during the journey here." Min-ho nodded and turned back to the main screen. The Zelani system appeared before them, and what they saw made everyone on the bridge gasp. 2 massive alien fleets faced each other across space, like angry giants. The Hegemony ships looked like floating fortresses, all sharp edges and weapon ports. The compact vessels were sleeker, but just as deadly, their hulls glowing with energy shields. Between these 2 fleets sat Zelani Prime, a beautiful blue-green world that should have been peaceful. Instead, orange flames dotted its surface where cities burned. Huge explosions lit up the night side of the planet as orbital bombardments continued. "My God," whispered engineer Lee Dong-yuk, who had been working on the ship's power systems. "Look at those refugee camps." The long-range sensors showed the planet's surface in detail. Millions of Zelani had fled their underwater cities and now lived in temporary camps on land. But these camps were not safe. Both alien fleets kept firing at anything that moved, treating the innocent Zelani as enemy targets. "Open all communication channels," Min-ho ordered. "Maximum power. I want every ship in this system to hear us." Park Ji-won's fingers danced over her controls. "Channels open, sir, broadcasting on all frequencies." Min-ho stepped forward and spoke clearly into the microphone. "This is Captain Lee Min-ho of the United Human Starship Mercy's Dawn. We are leading a medical convoy of 12 hospital ships. We are neutral humanitarian workers here to provide medical aid to the Zelani people. We carry no weapons. We pose no threat to any military forces. We are protected under galactic medical neutrality laws." The message repeated in 17 different alien languages. For several long minutes there was no response. The 2 alien fleets continued their standoff while the human medical convoy moved closer to the planet. Finally, a harsh voice came through the speakers. It was Admiral Kethvar of the Hegemony fleet. "Human ships, you will stay out of our combat zone. This is a military operation." Another voice joined in, smoother but equally cold. "Compact command agrees. Human vessels, maintain distance from strategic targets." Dr. Kim stepped up to the microphone. "This is Dr. Kim Soo-young, Chief Medical Officer. We are here only to save lives. The Zelani are dying down there. Women, children, elderly civilians who never chose this war, please allow us to help them." There was a pause. Then Admiral Kethavar spoke again. "You may proceed, humans, but stay away from military targets. Any ship that interferes with our operations will be destroyed." Minho felt his jaw clench, but he kept his voice calm. "Understood. Beginning medical operations now." As their convoy entered orbit around Zelani Prime, the full horror became clear. The planet's beautiful coral cities lay in ruins under the oceans. On land, massive camps held millions of refugees. Medical shuttles began launching from the human ships, racing toward the surface to begin rescue operations. Lieutenant Commander Choi Jin-woo coordinated the shuttles from the flight deck. "First wave away, Captain. Our people are brave as always." Crew watched their shuttles dive through the atmosphere toward the burning world below, carrying hope to the hopeless. 6 hours had passed since the human medical convoy began their rescue mission. The operation was going better than anyone had hoped. Shuttle after shuttle flew between the burning planet and the White Hospital ships, each one carrying wounded Zelani to safety. Lieutenant Commander Choi Jin-woo stood in the main shuttle bay of the Mercy's Dawn, watching as another group of rescued civilians was brought aboard. The Zelani looked like tall, graceful mer-people with silvery scales and large, intelligent eyes. Many were badly hurt from the bombing, but they were alive. "Bay 7, clear for landing," Jin-woo spoke into his headset as Shuttle Bravo 4 approached. The pilot, Officer Nam Yuri, had made 12 trips already today. Her small craft was packed with Zelani children who had been separated from their families. In the main medical bay, Dr. Kim Soo-young worked without stopping. Her surgical scrubs were stained with blood, but her hands stayed steady as she operated. On a young Zelani who had been caught in an explosion, around her dozens of human doctors and nurses treated hundreds of patients. "Doctor, we need you in operating room 5, called Nurse Shin Yoonji. "We have a family of 4, all critical." Dr. Kim nodded and quickly finished her work. The medical bay was organized chaos. Human medical teams had turned the massive cargo holds into emergency hospitals. Beds lined every available space, filled with Zelani refugees who were finally safe. Captain Minho walked through the medical decks, checking on his crew and the patients. Every human on board was working beyond their normal limits, but no one complained. They had saved over 8,000 Zelani lives in just 6 hours. "Captain," called Chief Engineer Lee Dong-hyuk over the intercom, "the power systems are holding steady. We can keep the medical equipment running for weeks if needed." The rescue shuttles continued their flights like busy bees. Each pilot pushed their small craft to the limit, making dangerous flights through the smoke and fire of the planet's atmosphere. They knew that every minute saved meant more lives rescued. Shuttle pilot Park Kyung-hwan was on his 15th trip when he saw something that made his heart break. A Zelani school had been hit by orbital fire. Hundreds of small Zelani children were trapped in the wreckage. "Control, this is Alpha 6. I found survivors at grid reference 77 Alpha. Sending coordinates now." Within minutes, rescue teams were on the ground, pulling injured children from the ruins. The human medics worked side by side with Zelani adults, language barriers meaning nothing when lives were at stake. On the bridge of the Mercy's Dawn, Communications Officer Park Ji-won monitored the radio traffic. Both alien fleets seemed to be respecting the ceasefire. The hegemony and compact warships stayed in their positions, weapons powered down but ready. "Sir, the refugee camps are reporting that evacuation is going faster than expected," Ji-won reported to Captain Minho. "At this rate, we can save everyone who wants to leave." Minho smiled for the first time in days. Maybe this mission would actually work. Maybe they could save an entire species without anyone getting hurt. That's when everything went wrong. The ship's alarm system suddenly screamed to life, a horrible wailing sound that meant immediate danger. Red warning lights flashed throughout. The bridge, as Tactical Officer Han Minji stared at her screen in shock. "Multiple contacts inbound," she shouted, her voice filled with panic. "It's the hegemony fleet. They're targeting us." Captain Minho spun toward the main screen, just in time to see Admiral Kethavar's massive dreadnoughts turning their weapons toward the medical convoy. The enormous alien warships looked like floating cities of death, bristling with plasma cannons and missile launchers, "What are they doing?" Park Ji-won screamed. "We're a medical convoy." The first salvo of enemy fire lit up space like a deadly fireworks show. Massive energy beams and explosive missiles streaked toward the helpless hospital ships. The Mercy's Dawn tried to turn away, but medical ships were not built for combat. Maneuvers. The first blast hit the ship's medical section directly. The explosion tore through decks filled with patients and doctors. In Medical Bay 3, Dr. Kim Soo-young was operating on a Zalani child when the wall beside her exploded. She, her patient, and her entire surgical team were sucked out into the vacuum of space in seconds, their bodies disappearing into the cold darkness. "Hull breach in medical!" screamed engineer Lee Dong-yuk as his damage control systems went crazy. "We're losing atmosphere on decks 4 through 7. More enemy fire slammed into the convoy. The hospital ship, Healing Light, took a direct hit to her power core and exploded like a small star. 200 human medical workers and 500 Zalani patients died instantly. The second chance broke in half, her broken pieces spinning away into space. Captain Minho felt warm blood running down his face from where flying debris had cut him. The bridge was filling with smoke, and sparks flew from damaged control panels. Around him, his crew fought desperately to save their ship and the thousands of lives aboard. "Emergency power to the medical decks," he shouted. "Save who we can." But the attack continued. Admiral Kethvar's fleet showed no mercy. They fired again and again at the clearly marked hospital ships, each blast killing hundreds of innocent people. 3 escort frigates that tried to protect the medical vessels were vaporized by massive plasma cannons. Minho crawled toward the communications console, his vision blurring from blood loss. He had to tell Earth what was happening. He had to let them know that someone had done the unthinkable. "Convoy 77 to Earth Command," he gasped into the microphone. "We are under attack. They're firing on medical vessels. We came to help." "Tell them we were trying to help." The transmission cut off as another explosion rocked the bridge. The communications array went dead, along with most of the ship's systems. Within minutes, the massacre was complete. The once proud medical convoy was now a field of wreckage floating in space. Over 3,000 human medical personnel were dead, along with 15,000 Zalani refugees they had been trying to save. The galaxy had just witnessed something that would change everything forever. The emergency message from the Zalani system took exactly 72 hours to reach Earth. It traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying the worst news humanity had received in decades. When the signal finally arrived at Earth's Deep Space Communication Center, the technician who received it couldn't believe what she was reading. Within minutes, the message was on President Yoon Seo-jin's desk. She read it 3 times, her hands shaking with barely controlled anger. 3,000 human medical workers murdered while trying to save lives. 15,000 innocent Zalani civilians killed while under human protection. An entire medical convoy destroyed by aliens who had promised safe passage. The president walked through the halls of the United Nations building in New York, her security team struggling to keep up. World leaders from every nation were already gathering for an emergency session. News of the attack had spread across Earth like wildfire. People were angry, confused, and demanding answers. The General Assembly Hall fell completely silent as President Yoon took the podium. Behind her, massive screens showed the faces of the dead. Dr. Kim Soo-young's kind smile appeared first, followed by Captain Lee Min-ho's determined expression. Then came hundreds more faces, young nurses who had volunteered to help strangers, engineers who had kept the hospital ships running, pilots who had risked their lives flying rescue missions. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Yoon began, her voice deadly quiet but carrying to every corner of the silent hall. 72 hours ago, our people were murdered. They were not soldiers. They were not spies. They were doctors and nurses who went to help people they had never met. The president paused, letting her words sink in. In the audience, representatives from alien governments shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Everyone knew that humanity had always been peaceful, always, willing to help others. This attack changed everything. They fired on a medical convoy, she continued, her voice growing harder with each word. They murdered doctors who were operating on children. They killed nurses who were treating the wounded. They destroyed hospital ships that were clearly marked with medical symbols. This will not stand. On the screens behind her, the names of the dead began scrolling. 3,000 names, each representing a life lost while trying to save others. In the audience, many alien ambassadors looked away, unable to meet the president's cold stare. At that exact moment, across the solar system, Fleet Admiral Lee Jae-hyun received a coded message on his personal communicator. The message contained only 2 words: Operation Reaper. His blood ran cold as he read them. He had hoped this day would never come. Admiral Lee immediately activated emergency protocols that had been secret for 30 years, hidden throughout the solar system. Massive shipyards that most people didn't even know existed suddenly came to life. Lights turned on in facilities buried deep inside asteroids. Robotic construction arms that had been dormant for decades began, moving with deadly purpose. On Mars, in a canyon so deep that satellites couldn't see the bottom, enormous hangar doors slowly opened. Inside, warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen waited in the darkness. These were humanity's real military vessels, not the small patrol ships that most aliens had seen. These were weapons of war, built in secret and hidden away, waiting. For the day when humanity's patience finally ran out, the 7th Fleet had been humanity's greatest secret. For 30 years, Earth's best engineers and shipbuilders had worked in hidden facilities, designing vessels that could fight and win against any enemy. They had hoped these ships would never be needed. They had been wrong. Admiral Song Taeyong received his orders while aboard his personal cruiser near Jupiter. Known throughout human space as Iron Song, he was humanity's most experienced military commander. He had fought pirates, stopped alien raiders, and kept the peace for decades. But now, peace was over. His flagship, the dreadnought Retribution, was a monster of a ship. 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could crack planets, it had been built for one purpose: to make humanity's enemies regret their choices. As Admiral Song took command, 46 other warships joined him. Forming the most powerful fleet humanity had ever assembled, each ship in the fleet carried something special painted on its hull, the names of the medical convoys dead. The Vengeance bore the name of Dr. Kim Soo-young in golden letters. The destroyer Justice carried Captain Lee Min-ho's name along its side. Every human who had died trying to save lives was remembered, their names turning the warships into floating monuments to humanity's murdered heroes. The fleet began moving toward the edge of the solar system, their engines burning bright blue in the darkness of space. These were not the slow, careful movements of exploration ships. These vessels moved with the deadly grace of predators, their hulls black as night and their weapons charging with barely contained energy. President Yoon's final words to Admiral Song before his departure were simple but terrifying. Make them understand. Mercy has limits. As the 7th Fleet disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward the Zalani system, every alien government in the galaxy received the same message from Earth. You killed our healers. Now you will learn why we kept our warriors hidden. The age of humanity's peaceful expansion was over. The age of retribution had begun. Across Earth, memorial services were held for the fallen medical workers, but these were not normal funerals. They were war rallies. Humanity had been pushed too far, and now the galaxy would learn what happened when you murdered those who came in peace. The 7th Fleet raced through space toward their target, carrying humanity's cold fury to those who had dared attack defenseless medical workers. The aliens had made their choice when they fired on the rescue convoy. Now they would face the consequences. The human 7th Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zalani system, like ghosts materializing from a nightmare. There were no grand announcements, no demands for surrender, no final warnings. The 47 warships simply appeared and began their work with the cold efficiency of professional killers. Admiral Song Taeyong stood on the bridge of his flagship, Retribution, watching the tactical display with eyes like winter ice. The Hegemony Fleet was still in position around Zalani Prime, their massive ships patrolling the same area where they had murdered the medical convoy 3 days earlier. Debris from the destroyed hospital ship still floated in space, like a graveyard of humanity's shattered mercy. All ships, this is Iron Song, the Admiral spoke into his communicator, his voice calm and deadly. You know why we're here. You know what they did. Show them what happens when someone kills our healers. Begin Operation Reaper. The human fleet moved like a pack of space wolves, their black hulls nearly invisible against the starfield. These ships had been designed for one purpose, to win wars that peaceful humanity had hoped would never come. Now that war was here, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans had hidden their true military power for so long. Captain Kang Hyun-soo commanded the destroyer Vengeance, a sleek killer that moved through space like a hunting shark. His ship was painted with the names of 57 medical workers who had died aboard the Mercy's Dawn. As he approached the first hegemony cruiser, he felt no anger, only cold determination. "Target their engines first," he ordered his weapons officer. "I want them alive long enough to know what's happening to them." The Vengeance opened fire with its plasma cannons, weapons that fired bursts of contained stellar fire hot enough to melt through any known armor. The hegemony cruiser's shields flared and died in seconds. The alien ship, which had seemed so powerful when destroying defenseless hospital ships, now looked pathetic as human weapons tore it apart piece by piece. The alien captain tried to broadcast a surrender, but Captain Kang had already moved on to his next target. There would be no prisoners today. No mercy for those who had shown none. Commander Shin Yuna led Blue Squadron, 12 fighter craft that moved through space like angry hornets. Her pilots were the best humanity had ever trained, and today they fought with a fury that made them nearly unstoppable. The small human fighters zipped between the massive alien battleships, their weapons finding weak spots that the enemy didn't even know existed. "Blue 3, take out that command tower," Yuna ordered as her fighter rolled between two enemy destroyers. "Blue 7, target their weapon batteries." Her pilot, Lieutenant Kim Ji-soo, responded immediately. "Copy, Commander." For Dr. Kim Soo-young, the squadron tore through the hegemony formations like tigers among sheep. The alien ships were big and powerful, but they moved like floating mountains compared to the human fighters. Yuna's pilots danced between enemy weapons fire, striking with surgical precision before disappearing back into the chaos of battle. On his flagship, Admiral Song watched the tactical display as his forces systematically destroyed the hegemony fleet. Each enemy ship that died represented justice for the murdered medical workers. The aliens had thought humans were weak because they preferred healing to fighting. They were learning how wrong they had been. "Sir, the hegemony flagship is trying to retreat," reported his tactical officer, Commander Park Sun-woo. Admiral Song's expression didn't change, but his voice became even colder. "Disable their engines. I want Admiral Kethvar alive." The human Dreadnought Judgment fired a single precise shot that destroyed the alien flagship's engine section without damaging the rest of the ship. The massive hegemony vessel, which had seemed so terrifying when attacking helpless medical ships, now drifted powerless in space. "Prepare boarding parties," Admiral Song ordered. "Full assault gear. I'm going personally." Within minutes, human Marines in powered armor were cutting through the hull of the alien flagship. The hegemony crew, who had been so brave when murdering doctors and nurses, now cowered as human soldiers moved through their ship like unstoppable machines of war. Admiral Song walked through the corridors of the enemy flagship, his heavy footsteps echoing in the silence. The alien crew pressed themselves against the walls as he passed, their faces filled with terror. They had never seen humans fight like this before. They had thought humans were soft, peaceful beings who could be bullied without consequence. The bridge doors had been sealed, but human cutting tools made short work of the alien barriers. Admiral Song stepped onto the enemy command center to find Admiral Kethvar cowering behind his command chair, his reptilian features twisted with fear. "Please," the alien admiral begged in broken human language. "We surrender. We yield. Show mercy." Admiral Song looked at the creature who had ordered the attack on the medical convoy. This alien had watched human doctors and nurses die and felt nothing. He had murdered children who were being treated in hospital beds. He had turned humanity's greatest act of mercy into a massacre. "Mercy?" Admiral Song said quietly, his voice carrying clearly across the silent bridge. "You want mercy? Did you show mercy to Dr. Kim Soo-young when she was operating on wounded children? Did you show mercy to Captain Lee Min-ho when he was broadcasting that he only came to help?" The alien admiral tried to speak, but no words came out. Around the bridge, his crew watched in terrified silence as the human commander approached their leader. "You killed healers," Admiral Song said simply, drawing his sidearm. "People who came to save lives, people who harmed no one." The single shot echoed through the bridge like thunder. Admiral Kethvar fell to the deck, his body still. The alien crew stared in shock at their dead commander, finally understanding that humanity's patience was not weakness, it was a choice. And that choice had just ended. Within 18 hours of their arrival, the human Seventh Fleet had completely destroyed the hegemony's military presence in the Zalani system. Not a single alien warship remained functional. The survivors floated in escape pods, watching in horror as human vessels methodically hunted down every ship that bore hegemony markings. The age of humanity's peaceful expansion was over. The galaxy had pushed them too far, and now everyone would learn what humans could do when mercy was no longer an option. The news of what happened at the Zalani system spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Within days, every alien government, every space station, every trading post had heard the same incredible story. Humanity, the species that everyone thought was weak and peaceful, had completely destroyed one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces in less than 18 hours. The Compact Coalition, which had been fighting alongside the hegemony, immediately sent surrender messages to Earth. Their fleet commanders abandoned their positions and fled to neutral space, terrified that the human Seventh Fleet might come for them next. The message was clear across 1,000 worlds: never attack human medical workers. On Earth, something extraordinary happened. Representatives from 19 different alien species arrived at the United Nations building, each carrying the highest honors their people could give. The Altarian Crystal of Sacrifice, the Vegan Star of Compassion, the Andromedan Medal of Ultimate Courage, all were presented to the families of Captain Lee Min-ho and Dr. Kim Soo-young. The ceremony was broadcast across human space and beyond. Ambassador Kethlan of the Rigelian Republic stood before the assembled crowd, his blue skin shimmering with emotion as he spoke through a universal translator. "We have learned something about humanity that shames us all," he said, his voice carrying to billions of listeners. "We thought your kindness was weakness. We thought your desire to help others made you vulnerable. We were wrong. Your medical workers died as heroes, and your warriors showed us what happens when good people are pushed too far." In Earth orbit, construction crews worked around the clock to build something the galaxy had never seen before: a monument to murdered healers. The Memorial of the Fallen Healers was a massive crystal structure that could be seen from Earth's surface, even during the day. Inside, holographic displays showed the faces and names of every human who had died in the medical convoy. The inscription, carved in letters 3 meters tall and written in 47 languages, read, "They came to heal. We came to ensure it never happens again." But the monument was just the beginning. Fleet Admiral Lee Jae-hyun established something called the Medical Protection Fleet, a permanent force of human warships dedicated to protecting medical missions throughout the galaxy. These ships, painted white with red crosses like the hospital ships they protected, patrolled major space routes with a simple message: attack a medical worker and face humanity's wrath. The Zalani species, saved from total extinction by the human medical workers' sacrifice, became something unique in galactic history. They became humanity's first true alien allies, not just trading partners or diplomatic contacts, but genuine friends. Zalani engineers worked with human scientists to develop new medical technologies. Zalani artists created beautiful sculptures honoring the fallen medical workers. Their children learned human languages in school and sang songs about Dr. Kim Soo-young's courage. Together, humans and Zalani established medical stations throughout their space, offering free treatment to anyone who needed it. These stations were protected by joint human-Zalani defense fleets, making them the safest places in the galaxy for anyone seeking medical help. The hegemony as a political entity simply ceased to exist. Their member worlds either joined other alliances or declared independence. Many of their former colonies, freed from oppression, sent thank-you messages to Earth. The galaxy had lost one of its most brutal regimes, and everyone except the former hegemony leaders was grateful. But the real change was in how other species viewed humanity. The peaceful humans who ran schools and hospitals and research stations were still there, still helping anyone who asked. But now everyone knew that these same humans could field a military force capable of destroying entire star systems if their mercy was abused. Alien species that had once ignored human requests for aid now competed to help with humanitarian missions. The Corvan Empire offered their fastest ships for medical evacuations. The Scythe Collective provided their best doctors for joint missions. The crystal beings of Deneb shared their healing technologies freely. A year after the Zalani system incident, the rebuilt Mercy's Dawn the Segs prepared for its first mission. Captain Park Sunho, who had served under Captain Lee Minho years earlier, stood on the bridge of the new hospital ship. This vessel was even larger than the original, capable of treating 20,000 patients and carrying the most advanced medical equipment in the galaxy. "Captain, we're approaching the Theta Cygni system," reported navigator Lee Ji-hyun. "The civil war there has created millions of refugees." Captain Park nodded as he watched the tactical display. But this time, something was different. Instead of traveling alone with only a few escort ships, the Mercy's Dawn II was surrounded by a massive fleet. Warships from 6 different alien species had volunteered to escort the human medical mission. The Corvan heavy cruiser Honor Guard flew alongside the human hospital ship. The Andromedan carrier Protector launched fighter patrols around the Convoy. The Vegan science vessel Healer's Shield provided additional medical supplies. These alien ships weren't required to be there by treaty or law. They came because they wanted to honor the memory of the humans who had died trying to save lives. "This is Captain Park Sunho of the UHSS Mercy's Dawn II," he broadcast to the war-torn system ahead. "We come in peace, carrying medical supplies and personnel. We are here to help anyone who needs healing regardless of which side of your conflict they support." The response came immediately from both sides of the Civil War. "Human medical ships, you are welcome here. All forces have been ordered to protect your mission." As the convoy entered the system, Captain Park smiled. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity's compassion was not weakness. It was strength backed by the will to protect those who could not protect themselves. The medical workers who had died in the original convoy had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had created a galaxy where healers were protected and mercy was respected. The age of attacking medical workers was over. The age of protected healers had begun, and everyone in the galaxy knew that humanity would make sure it stayed that way. The end.